Good morning, Representative Balint.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. We very much appreciate it.
You're
Um,
welcome.
we
How
know that
chilly is it where you are?
plenty chilly. There's no
Yes.
shortage of chilliness
Yes.
where we
Yes,
are.
it was
Um,
quite chilly here as well. So,
that's the time of year, and I know being from Vermont, at least for me, I don't know about you, it wouldn't be Christmas without cold and snow.
yes.
Christmas or the holiday season, but I'd be fine if I only saw the snow on the ground from about December 15th to January 5th and have it be 70 and sunny the rest of the year. But
Okay.
that's not very Vermontish, so I guess I'm an outcast in
Yeah,
that
I won't
regard.
tell anyone, Joe. We'll keep
Okay.
it on this call.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Um, hey, thank you all for joining us. I know we got a few other people that are going to be jumping on the line. Morning, Rob. And Very
Morning.
informal. We know our time with you is limited. Just wanted an opportunity to catch up with you
Yes,
and
please.
to do two things really, to hear from you, perhaps some of your perspectives on the state of affairs in Congress right now and what you see, your priorities, what's important to you and whatnot. That might be of interest to the credit unions that serve your constituents in Vermont. And then perhaps to hear from some of the credit unions that are on the line with us today about what they're hearing from your constituents, the members that they serve, and maybe some of the things that they're doing to meet the needs of those individuals. So with that, if it's okay with you, we'll just
Yes,
turn it
jump
over to
in.
you and let you get running.
So I don't think it will be any surprise to anyone on the call that we're dealing with a lot of chaos and uncertainty in DC. I know I continue to hear from Vermonters across the state. They're very concerned about the issue around the ACA subsidies going away and real deep concern about not being able to afford insurance. I'm hearing from a lot of small businesses that if the marketplace goes away, that they're afraid they're going to lose employees because those employees are going to try to seek employment with employers that don't require them to find insurance on the marketplace. The unemployment numbers are up across the country. Of course, we continue to have a housing crisis in Vermont, and there's just general uncertainty for the future and low confidence in the economy. And so, what is the most frustrating for me, and again, I don't think this will be any surprise to you because I'm a straight shooter. It's incredibly frustrating to me that my Republican colleagues know that what is happening right now is really bad for the economy, and they will say it behind closed doors, but they will not speak up in committee or on the floor to actually change the course, and talked to quite a few businesses in the last 6 months who they'll come into my office and they will work both sides of the aisle, of course. And I'll say, well, what do you hear from my Republican colleagues? And they say, you know what we're hearing. They know that this is bad. They know that the businesses can't deal with uncertainty, lack of stability, but they refuse to all band together to speak up. So they're doing end runs around the congressional process. They're trying to get their own audiences with the president to try to cut their own deals, and this is just no way to run an economy. So I see some bright spots of people starting to be a little bit more honest about what they're hearing from their constituents. I'm very concerned that the president keeps talking about affordability being a hoax, because that's certainly not at all what I'm hearing from Vermonters. But the most important thing for this call is for me to hear from you. What are you hearing? What do you want me to know? I know our time is short, so I would love to use the bulk of the time for you to tell me, what are you hearing for Vermonters? What are the things that are on your radar screens that you're worried about that might not have arrived on our radar screen yet? And of course, I've got Morgan Nichols on the call from my office in Vermont, Kate Gorid from our office in DC, and they are very happy to be here as well. So if I could, Joe, I'd love to just turn it back over to you and let's have a conversation about what are you hearing and what is keeping you up at night.
Sure. Thank you very much for your comments. And what about that question, everybody? And Rob, you're the first person my eyes gravitated towards. I see on the screen. So I'm going to target to kind of get things rolling for us.
Well, good morning, Representative. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Honestly, I don't know that I can add too much to your introduction. I will say, yeah, it's don't forget it. I think you did mention healthcare, but healthcare obviously
that's
is
a
a
big
big
one.
issue.
Yeah.
Property taxes and affordability more broadly is a big one here in Vermont. And what we're finding is that it's becoming increasingly difficult for people to borrow money because the costs are so high that the amount they need to borrow, and then of course the monthly payment is puts them out of reach. I will say that, and I see Ian's on the phone, so he'll tell me if I'm wrong, but we have seen pretty good demand on the small business growth side. So we're not. It's not that we're not hearing those things that you say, but they are investing, at least from our experience, they are investing and growing at all levels. Really, we've seen a few larger projects as well as our bread and butter, of course, is the smaller projects. So it's
That's
a little
great
bit of
news, Rob. I needed some great news on this Monday morning.
well,
I'll take it.
I want to make you smile this morning,
I
Representative.
appreciate that.
So yeah, it's everything that you mentioned. I don't know that I have anything else. I will say that one sort of ironic twist is a lot of our solar lending is actually occurring outside of Vermont because utility rates and energy costs are so much higher outside of Vermont. It's actually easier to pencil out a solar project than what it is in Vermont, where our rates are actually relatively affordable compared to the rest of the country. So we are seeing good growth in, I wouldn't say good growth, but we are seeing growth. Our overall solar lending portfolio is probably down for all the obvious reasons, but we are seeing growth outside the state on that. And you have a number of my colleagues on the phone, so if anyone has anything they want to add to that, I know Ian's on here, and I think Annie is on here from our mortgage area as well.
I'll bump in with a few, I think, personal tidbits of what I'm hearing and really impacts on, real people. We had one buyer pull out specifically because of the fear of high healthcare costs and the uncertainty of what they were going to do. They were under contract. Everything was good. They were ready to close. And they actually decided now is not the time because of the uncertainty surrounding that. Property taxes. I know Rob said that. That's definitely something I'm hearing more and more of as those kind of fear sets in of what those might be doing. Lots of talk of moving out of state, Delaware, North Carolina, Virginia areas, from personal friends of mine is what I'm hearing. They just can't take the rising costs in Vermont anymore. And then the government shutdown, we had pretty minimal impact, but I know Amanda's on the line. We had one borrower who had a RD loan for the home that they were selling, and they were unable to get a payoff. So things got delayed. And I think we were just able to get that last week. So again, just another kind of true life story of the impacts of that and how luckily it still, I think, is going through. But just the impacts, it was delayed probably about a month here, waiting on the payoff for that. So
that's hard. That's hard for people who are trying to make plans for their lives and to feel that sense of powerlessness, that there are forces beyond their control. I know that's a terrible feeling.
Yeah, or having movers lined up, like you think you're all ready to go, and then it's pulled out from underneath you, and there's a domino effect because it's not just that one transaction, it's somebody was selling and buying on the other end, and so on and so forth. So just a few things from the front line of what I'm seeing.
I really appreciate that. And of course, it's so important for me to be able to really bring these stories back with me to the budget committee and the judiciary committee and on the floor to be able to say, no, these are the real world costs of these events. Both Rob and Annie, you both mentioned property taxes. Of course, I live here. I see them too. Now, I have a question. I know that part of the governor's push with the legislature to do another revisioning of the school landscape was supposed to be around this issue of property taxes. I know from checking in with friend of mine in the legislature, the committee that was supposed to bring back a proposal for refiguring of districts actually didn't come back with any proposal. And I'm just wondering, how are people feeling about that issue? Is that coming up at all around the property tax issue? Is there frustration, or is it just a general sense of like property taxes are too high, I'm out?
Yeah, Annie, are you hearing anything on, Amanda? Yeah.
I'll chime in, but I'm not
Yeah.
hearing more particulars, Becca.
Okay.
I think people don't really understand or don't dive that deep. It's just property taxes are increasing, I'm out kind of thing, like you said, is what I'm hearing. Amanda.
Yeah, I live in the islands, so I'm in Grand Isle. So we
Okay.
are very concerned about our schools closing up here.
Yeah.
The proposal the committee came back with was shared services, which is estimated to save over 334 million annually. So it didn't feel like nothing to me. And it felt like a way to move towards preserving rural schools without, the governor's plan cuts the majority of school districts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was just wondering about the connection between, the one of the largest cost drivers for our property tax in Vermont is also the cost of insurance. And so just was curious how that was playing out locally, but I really appreciate your perspective, Amanda, from up in the islands. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm hearing that as well, is that a lot of cost drivers are actually built into health insurance. So that's an accurate point. Vermonters tend to want everything, right? They want their local control and lower costs. So I think that's the rub that at least I'm hearing out there.
Thank you. Other things that you're hearing from either your community members or your clients?
Hey, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah. Representative Balint, I would just say, I don't know if that I can add too much more than we've already talked about. The affordability issue is obviously a big one in a number of areas. I think one thing that keeps me up at night too, that the federal government has a big play in, is just our regulatory oversight and what that means for how we are able to serve our members, going forward. I just saw the other day the NCUA was talking about, continuing to lay people off and shrink their staff, which they already substantially did earlier this year. The CFPB, I don't know whether or not they even exist anymore.
Only in name at this point, really.
Yeah, and obviously I think the sense is, for financial institutions, less regulation may be better. But I think, again, to your point about uncertainty at the top of this call, what does that mean for us? How does that impact our ability to serve our members in our community? I don't think we know that yet, but just something of concern.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Yeah, there certainly is a lot of uncertainty, like Tim's, just to echo what Tim was saying, in financial services with regard to, the state of affairs with regulators and whatnot. And there's been speculation about, some people wanting to see some consolidation among federal regulators, which we'd be opposed to, as far as consolidating our primary federal regulator, NCUA, that Tim referenced, National Credit Administration. That entity is governed or was governed, created by Congress, by a 3-member board of directors. 2 of those people got jettisoned. It's now down to 1, just a chair. There continues to be some back and forth about whether it is legally functional or not with just a 1-person board of directors.
Right.
So there's not a whole lot of regulatory activity one way or another coming out of that entity. They're just doing for the most part, the daily operations and whatnot. So it's an interesting time for sure. What you think Congress is filtering down to those kinds of levels and beyond too.
Yeah, and Joe, I think that is what you're saying is also sort of a top line from this administration right now, is consolidation of power on these boards and panels that are supposed to be doing oversight. And regardless of who's in power, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans, I don't think it's good to have consolidated power, shrinking boards down to one person making that decision, or, one of the things that has been a hallmark of our government for decades has been you have a mix of Democrats and Republicans on these oversight boards. And that is how, I always say none of us are as smart as all of us, right? So individually, we're going to look at things a particular way. When you are shrinking the number of people in a room poking, poking issues or holes in issues or kicking the tires on things, then you get groupthink. And I think when you get groupthink, we saw what happened in 08, right? With the, we know how this story ends when you don't have people in the room saying, hey, is this really a good idea? So, it is my hope that over the next few years, we'll see some changes in that balance, because right now I get concerned that the oversight is going to fail us because you're not going to have people in the room who are raising the important questions.
So just a question that crosses my mind that I don't hear anybody talking about too much, or don't read about in the press too much, is, the whole funding of the federal government and all of the contention in Congress and everything got moved down the road, and I forget the exact date of expiry and whatnot. But what do you think, from where you sit, is going to happen at that point, or leading up to that point in time? Is it just going to be the same play, replayed again, or something fundamentally going to change in the whole funding structure?
Joe, I wish I knew. Honestly, my fear, and I don't think it's an unfounded fear, is that we're going to come up against the deadline again, and it's going to be Groundhog Day all over again. Right. Because what needs to be happening is you need to have essentially the four corners within both the House and the Senate sitting down, both Democrats and Republican leaders in both these chambers, doing some long-term planning. And you have a very weak speaker right now. And so he has had a fractious conference for a long time, but it's gotten more extreme in the last few weeks, with more people saying they're going to leave. There have been more people openly defying him. So I don't think there's a lot of long-range planning happening right now. You've got a man who's trying to save his own job at this moment, which makes it very difficult to do that long-range planning. But look, we're not hearing about substantive conversations that are happening around how we're going to solve the ACA problem. I mean, this is a massive problem. Millions of people are going to lose their healthcare. As I said, it's going to impact small businesses. And there seems to be this sense of, well, we're just going to let it lapse and we'll let the chips fall where they may. It's going to be another big hit on the economy. But I'm curious, Kate, at your level, what are you hearing among other legislative directors?
I think about the same, unfortunately. I think this is one of those times where members have the better info than staff. But I think there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think Joe's point about like the short-term nature of these CRs is a really good one. And January 30th is the date of this current CR. And that is both like very soon and kind of a long time from now, if that makes sense. I think a lot of dynamics on their side are going to change. And the healthcare conversation on their side seems to change like 7 times a day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There's no way to run a government. I wish I could bring good news from the trenches. It is, I think what has become clear to me is many people are insulated from the impacts of their constituents back home. And one of the things that I've noticed is that you've got a lot of us who are still doing town halls and roundtables and getting out and meeting face to face with people and families and individuals that are being deeply impacted by the uncertainty. And you've got some people who haven't done a town hall in 10 months. And so they're not hearing that raw, unfiltered, things are bad. and unfortunately, I also think our president right now is very insulated from that as well. I think so you had Susie Wild, who was I'll give you a little inside baseball, his chief of staff, who was in many ways, I disagree with her on most things, but she was a truth teller. Like, the polls are bad, things aren't good, like, you need to do something different. She's been sidelined now. So I fear that he's actually not getting the message around the economy and the affordability issue and what a large impact this ACA issue is going to be. And so if you don't have people giving it to him straight, then it is difficult, because then what we have is it's disgusting to say, but we have leadership by tweet right now. And my Republican colleagues will sort of test the waters around, trying to get to some agreement on ACA, but then depending on what comes on a Truth Social tweet, they'll retrench. And that makes it difficult. That's not leadership, obviously.
I don't know if you have an answer to this, and it's not a policy issue, but just a curiosity issue on my part. The numbers of people that we hear about or read about in the press, either leaving or intending to leave Congress, and you referenced it a little while ago, is that, in your estimation, is that typical, or is it just the press playing it up more and trying to get an angle, or are there more underlying, reasons causing greater numbers of that activity?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. Obviously, the press loves a good conflict, right? It's sure. for over a century, right? It sells papers. It right now it captures eyeballs. But there is a change here, and I'll tell you what it is. So even in past administrations, when you had a Republican conference that maybe wasn't getting everything that they wanted from their president, they still felt like you had an administration that was letting you have some power, right? You've got the executive sort of driving, the general direction that we're going in. But what we're hearing from our Republican colleagues is essentially, we don't have any power anymore. We're in the majority, and yet we don't have power. And part of that is because they've allowed the executive to come into their lane as legislators, right? So legislators have the power of the purse. That's not the job of the executive. It's the job of Congress. And I was a history teacher, so I don't want to get too wonky, but the framers never imagined there would be a Congress of any party, Democrats or Republicans, that were willing to give up their power. The system only works when everyone's protecting their power and acting as a force against the other branch. And I think many of my colleagues on the Republican side have realized, we gave up all our power, and now essentially we have no impact. Like they were grousing last week in DC, we don't have the ability to even do like big ribbon cuttings on particular projects that we're doing in district. That's your bread and butter, right? For a lot of these rural districts, people have to see that they're showing up for them. They have allowed this administration to claw back all of this money that was delegated to these new energy projects, right? That were rolled out under Biden. You had hundreds and hundreds of electricians fired in Maine because all of those projects came offline. And so again, it goes to the insulation, I think, of the executive and Republican members feeling like, well, it doesn't feel great to be in the majority anymore because it doesn't actually feel like we have that power. And there's only one way to wrestle that back, which is they have to band together and they have to say no and tell the executive, no, you cannot have the power of the purse too. And so far, I think there's real fear. And I don't know if you saw the interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene this weekend. She gave an interview in which she was asked point blank, do your colleagues essentially believe in the MAGA movement? And she said, no, most of them don't. They all go along because they don't want essentially people showing up at their doors to threaten them, and they don't want their personal home address to be tweeted by the president. And so you have a true believer in the movement saying, most of my colleagues don't believe in this. They're just going along out of fear. And I don't think that's good for any of us. I don't want anyone to be afraid. I wish they would band together. That's what I wish. I wish they would band together and realize they can't go after all of you, but if you let them pick you off one by one, it makes you more vulnerable.
Sure.
So there are people running for the exits. And unfortunately, what we've seen in the last few years, the people who go for the exits are the more governing-minded Republicans. The people who actually want to get things done, who aren't there for celebrity, they say, well, I can't deliver for my constituents. I ran for these issues. I care about small businesses, or I care about the opioid issue, or whatever it is. And they say, I can't do that in this structure, so I would rather do something else. And that worries me, because you want governing-minded people on both sides who actually want to do work for people. And so I worry long-term, who will our partners be?
Good points. Thank you very much for that perspective. I didn't mean to get off track there, but that's all part of what's going on there.
And I think it's baffling to a lot of people.
For sure. Well, you have a challenging job and a challenging environment, and I'm not sure any of us envy what you have to do on a day-to-day basis, but we appreciate what you do on a day-to-day basis for sure. Any other questions for a representative from Vermont, or insights or stories from what's going on in your credit union?
Joe, this is Rob.
Please.
This is what we call a hard pivot, representative. But I will tell you, we are spending quite a bit of time looking into what I'll call a broad category of payments. Generally, this includes MasterCard, credit cards, but it also includes things like stablecoin and tokenized deposits and real-time payments. We're particularly looking at the stablecoin and tokenized deposits. I don't have any conclusions for you yet.
Okay.
I think that this could be equal part opportunity and equal part threat to depository institutions generally, not just credit unions. And I'm not exactly sure what side yet this is going to be. I do think that the nature of the solutions, if you're not going to be left behind, will likely require some investment and resources on the institution's front, and that may likely make it more difficult for smaller institutions to play along. So that's my initial concern, but I'm not sure that it's going to be difficult for all of us not to get left behind yet. So more to come on that, but that's something that we're spending. That's something that's out there that we're spending a lot of time on.
Thank you.
That's a good point, Rob. I know a lot of what we're seeing in the trade press is all revolving around that very issue, and there's way more questions than there are answers about what's going to happen to banks, credit unions, and others in that whole arena. Well, thank you very much, Representative, for your time. We greatly appreciate it, and it's been great having a virtual face-to-face with you and with everyone else here. And your staff does a great job and is very responsive every time that we have questions or share information. So thank you for that too.
Yeah. And Joe, if I could, I know this was, there was a lot of, I wouldn't say upbeat news, but I want you to know that I do this job because I actually believe in the power and the resiliency of human beings. I do not believe that the story is done. I really don't. And I am somebody who is a glass half full kind of gal, and I'm still going every single day to figure out who are those people that I can work with across the aisle. How can we be more effective as a staff? And as hard as the job is, and I won't lie to you, it's tough right now because I'm a doer. And I like to be able to see that I'm actually doing stuff to make life better for people. So it's tough not to feel like I'm not achieving the things that I want to around the housing front, or making sure that people are going to have a better life for their kids. Because I have 2 teenagers myself. But I always want people to know it is still the honor of my life to do this job. And despite how hard it is, I have not lost hope at all. I know we're going to turn a corner. I just wish we were turning it a little faster. But I know that we are a strong, resilient people, and we're going to get out of this.
Thank you so much for those comments. And specific to credit unions, we know, or I know anyway, that you've been a big advocate and strong supporter and believer in credit unions and the cooperative delivery of financial services. So thank you for that very much. And thank you for the work you do in Washington on behalf of Vermonters and credit union members throughout the country.
Thanks for all you do for all the people you serve, and have a really wonderful holiday season. Really, there's nothing wrong with finding joy, even when things are hard. In fact, it helps us to live another day to fight. So thank you so much for everything that you do, for all the people who walk through your doors who need help to build their futures. It really matters.
Thank you very much. And thank you to
You're
everyone for
welcome.
joining us today. Have a great holiday season.